Hello and welcome back. Another episode, the first episode of the new year. Happy New Year, fellas. We of course are joined. It's not Lauren in the middle. I know you guys are surprised. It's there's a bearded male in the middle. Usually that's Lauren's spot. She's not here this week. Probably I don't know, missing the Florida Gators too much. But as always, the reliable Arsenal fan Sammo is here with us. How you doing, Sam?
Always a pleasure, mate, and I'm doing really well, as you just mentioned there. We are still top of the league, but that's a different sport. But we are doing all right.
Yeah. Two Arsenal fans rocking the podcast, but unfortunately, we will not be focusing on the real football today. We will instead be focusing on the fake American football. And we are joined by Simon, who's... Is that his camera?
Yeah, I think basically what you heard, you talk about Arsenal too much and called football, so left for a minute there. But he's back.
Sorry about that, guys. Apologies.
No problem. Simon, welcome in. You want to introduce yourself and give us a bit of context as to who you are?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, guys. I'm Simon Carroll. I'm the lead writer for The Touchdown, a UK-based American football website that covers NFL, college football, the draft, every aspect of American football over here. And I also cover college football for DAZN, which is a recent development, which I'm very pleased to be a part of as well. So been doing college football for quite some time now, maybe over a decade. Obviously, I prefer that code of football to the NFL in general. And looking forward to talking about it today.
Good. You do a bit of writing presumably, and recently working with DAZN. They're a pretty big company, media broadcast.
Yeah. It was funny really. I got invited out to Kansas recently for a trip to by the Union Jack Classic guys who were obviously bringing a game over to Wembley Stadium this year. And met a contact there who I basically pressurised into giving me a contact, and I asked them if I could write for them, and they said yeah. And that was pretty much how it went. It's taken some time. But yeah, that's how that came about. Obviously, it's great to see that DAZN carrying the college football games this year. It was a bit of a worry at the beginning of the season for any college football fans over here as to who was going to show them, because coverage has been spotty at best in the UK in general. But yeah, they've hosted all the games. They've done a good job of it too, which has been nice to see. And I think they're making a real push for kind of drumming up interest in this country.
Yeah. In your experience, I mean, you said you've been doing it for close to 10 years now. Like, obviously, I mean, even in the time that I've been supporting, I mean, primarily the NFL over college, but the game is clearly growing in Europe. Like, from where it was 10 years ago to where it is now, I mean, you've surely, from the first game in Wembley, maybe 2007, I want to say, to now being dozens of games in the UK, Dublin this year, Madrid, they've gone to Germany. As you said, now there's the first college game coming to London, the Union Jack Classic, and then there's, recurring games in Dublin every year. So, I mean, you must have seen just an incredible transformation and growth of American football, especially into Europe, over the course of the last 10 years.
Yeah, and Sam will be able to explain that as well. As best, obviously, like the NFL has gone from being a really almost like a kind of like a curiosity here to now it's no longer a niche sport at all. Obviously, we get incredible coverage every week of the NFL. Now you can almost choose which game you want to watch via Sky. It's obviously the NFL Network and Game Pass is carried by DAZN. So it's become pretty much part of the sporting calendar for people who are obsessed with sport, which tends to be like people like us, for instance. So obviously, it doesn't really matter what sport it is. To some extent, we're just obsessed with it, and NFL is part of that now. College football is a bit different. It's a bit more tricky to get a hold of over here. And I think most people's entry route to college football is via the NFL. You learn about the NFL, then you learn about the NFL draft. And then from there, you learn about college football. That's the way I did it anyway, in particular. Now I'm into college football. To me, it's all consuming, really. But I think we're far away from that just yet. But we've been privileged to have games in Dublin for the past 5 or 6 years, which I've been grateful to be able to go to. So that was always in week 0, as they call it, the first week of the college football season. It's always been a big game there. And yeah, the development this year that there's going to be a game at Wembley Stadium is absolutely fantastic news. But as Sammo will tell you, basically the difference between a game over here and a game over in the States is night and day. The experience that we had at Kansas.
Yeah, that's the big thing at the moment. I think is just to keep them different in a sense. That so the games over here in the UK are special. Like I think even when Americans come over, they like the old spin of people obviously singing certain chants and getting along with the DJ as well when they choose a different song, etc. I do think we need to have the balance of bringing that American essence here. We talked about the bands, for instance, that are at college games, but even at the NFL now, I think fans have really adopted this sport a little bit more, so they know when to be noisy, when not to be noisy. Things like that. I think they've obviously started to come into a little bit more. And the NFL have done a great job, obviously trying to bring in new fans where people maybe have, been watching obviously the Premier League and obviously their local teams for up and down the football pyramid to then say, hey, try and adopt this sport as well. They've done everything they can to have that bit of crossover. And I'm hoping actually there's probably more resignation with college. Actually, I think people in the UK will probably buy college football a lot more because of that, and it will probably just go hand in hand with the NFL with they put these games in place. And I'm hoping that the Union Jack Classic can obviously get as big as it can be, and obviously we'll see loads of teams from different conferences maybe down the line. But college football is its own beast. Even in the States, you talk to people in the States, there's people to follow the college team, don't follow NFL. They're diehard college fans, and they'll get behind it. They part with good money, not just for tickets, but other things as well. So that's the bit that I think the Brits, as we say, will love, is that people are diehard when it comes to college, maybe more so than NFL. And we know that with our usual co-host in Lauren and her leading Gators, basically, that you cannot ever say a bad thing about those Gators. But yeah, it's awesome to see, and you've obviously been writing about it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to what people's thoughts will be when they do get to see a snippet of what it's like, obviously with a college game here in the UK. But I'd always recommend to anyone, if you get that opportunity to go to the States, you have to go and check it out, because it is a completely different ball, pun intended.
Yeah. I think, as you mentioned there, Lauren, I think when you listen to how she speaks, the passion and the love that she has for, the Florida Gators and the SEC, it's clear that when you're in that area, when you go to one of those schools and you're going to a college game every Saturday, you feel the connection. There's, numerous stadiums with over 100,000 fans. You're going with the rest of your school. It's just that absolute, it's like a real community feeling, which I think it's easy to do over there, but it's tougher to translate that over here. I think the big, the thing about sports, especially when it's primarily an American sport and you're trying to bring it over to Europe, is people buy into the narratives of the sport. So people will buy into the players, I think, specifically over the actual schools. Especially if you're European, you've no attachment to an American school. So obviously in the professional league, they've had, they had Tom Brady, Brady versus Manning, and then it was Mahomes and Josh Allen, and they've always had these narratives of players that you can kind of cling on to. It's oh, I like that player, and so people pick players, and then they might pick their team based off that. But the challenge, I think, for college over here is those players. Now, they are in recent years, because of NIL, they're getting a little bit more high profile. But those, if you ask somebody to name 3 college football players, the average fan might struggle, or the average European fan might struggle to do that. So I think they need to put the high profile players, obviously Arch Manning is a classic example, put these players on higher pedestals, give them a bit more media coverage, and then people will buy into the player, the narrative, and then that's kind of a segue into the sport,
Yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson is the biggest one for me. If you look about a player profile now and how people then buy into it, you think about the gritty and what the gritty has brought to the sport in terms of where's that come from? Players like Premier League players are doing it. Other sporting athletes are doing it. Where's that come from? He made that famous. And then people are like, oh, who's Justin Jefferson? what is a Justin Jefferson? Then they're looking at it going, right, okay, they start looking at the sport that way. You're talking about profile. That's how you can build that. And I think when you have these players now with the money, they're being put in front of the cameras even more now because they've got to earn that cash a little bit more, not just what they're doing on the field. I think that's going to happen. I think one of the big things I'd love to see in the UK to maybe get that similar hype is where you had a bit more of a gateway from, your universities and college programs, these sort of academies, then feeding into pro teams, because that's what they've got in the States. You can be rubbing shoulders with the next big thing. And that's where people obviously buy into that whole way through. Like it could be from a smaller program like KU. Obviously, with Kansas University, it could be that player that you could be next to Talib College, and he goes and then he moves on to the next position, or into the Broncos, for instance. So I'm just thinking, is that something that we could adopt in the UK? I love that Lauren's passion. I love every college fan you speak to in the States, their passion for it, and it's the conflicts at home I love. When you've got mum and dad that have come from two different universities and then they end up playing each other, that household is outrageous. I love it. I love to see it. And it'd be good. And as I said, I think Brits will buy into it a little bit more because we love that tribalism, right? That tribalism of like Arsenal v Tottenham, United versus City, that element, we love that. That's die hard. And I think if people kind of saw that environment within college football, I think there'd be a lot more buy as well, because I think they would find something that resonates with them as well. But and right now, as you know, playoffs are here. There's all these like bowls that are obviously popping up left, right, and center as well. You've seen the hatred that goes into these games all around the college as well as they prepare for it. And I think you see it after the games, don't you? You see like those after game interviews where all that passion, that sort of adrenaline comes out into the after game interviews, where it's just like, oh, that's all done because it's been pent up like for weeks and weeks. So it's a great sport, and I can see why Simon writes about it all day, every day, basically.
Yeah, a little bit obsessed, I would say. I mean, it's difficult to try and explain to British people what it is. There's nothing like the United States of America is the only place that has this kind of collegiate sports system that, as Sam alluded to, is kind of brought about loyalty that you don't see in professional sports in America. Even at the end of the games in the NFL, it's a business to everybody. They're all going out there shaking hands. It's not the same in college at all. It's very much life and death, like it is for our sport over here. I think that's the key critical link, really. When you remember there's 32 NFL teams in maybe 30 different cities in America, 50 states. There's 136 FBS for Division I level college football teams. So you've got maybe 4 or 5 times as many narratives, as many storylines, as many rivalries. Everywhere you look, and even it's not some amateur anymore. The semi-amateur nature of it makes it more interesting too, because there's more mistakes, there's more different things that can happen. All kinds of tricks, traditions, which again I think is something that very much links college football with the British people more so than America than NFL does, because tradition is quite important to us as well. There's so much I think that people could buy into over here with the sport, and I honestly believe that a lot of NFL people would start to slowly, like I have done, kind of faded away from the NFL just to focus on college football because it's just so much more exciting to watch.
Yeah. You made an interesting point there, and Sam alluded to it as well, like about the element of rivalries, like the Arsenal Spurs in London, for example. But I just feel like the Europeans are not getting that kind of exposure, and you mentioned the semi, the kind of amateurish level of it. That's been an issue too, because at the professional level, in European sports and also in American sports, there's a little bit of unpredictability about it, right? The team who's last can get a good result against the team who's on top of the table, or whatever the case may be. But in American football, in college football specifically, you do see a consistent theme of like these kind of blowout games, so like you look up a score, it's like, oh yeah, well, my friend recommended that I should check out Alabama, right? They're a very identifiable college program. You look them up and they beat a team 60-7 or whatever on Saturday, and you're kind of thinking like, well, like I'd much rather watch a close game or an underdog game. But with the way that some of these college schedules are aligned now, of course you do get close games, but I think they're far more in the minority. You get these blowout games, and it's something that we spoke about previously on the podcast, where like you then get to the playoffs and you get blowout games in the playoffs as well. So you're kind of having what Lauren described as just bad football at the end of the season, which is not really what you want to happen. And I think those intensely one-sided games where you're kind of, you're taking off your starters at halftime, and it's obviously great for the other guys to get game time, but I don't think such one-sided results actually work in favor of growing the sport in a European audience.
Maybe not. Maybe not, to be fair. Go on, you go first, Sam.
Yeah. No, just I think those freak results do sometimes happen, obviously, in any sport. But I do agree, if it keeps happening, it's just like, what's the value? You want the best versus the best teams playing the best teams. Does it not add a bit of controversy all the way through when it just keeps it relevant? Or certain teams do get in, and here we are talking about it. I think that's the American sports system's always good at that. They always find a way to keep a narrative going or something alive for it to always be relevant. I just think the other side of it is the damage it does to the team that gets absolutely spanked. Like, what does that do? And I think now with being on the line and how much easier it is for players to move from one program to another, it's the damage I think it does to those programs. I think that they need to sort of maybe protect a little bit more.
Yeah. It's a kind of a good segue into the playoffs that we're going to talk about today, because you've seen two different dynamics. You mentioned these games where there are blowouts, and they do exist. Then you mentioned like how smaller teams may get into the playoffs because there's a system whereby the top five conference winners get in, which means that one smaller conference champion will be in the playoffs. This year we had two of them in, and they both lost in the first round. But as a big fan of soccer over here, and one of my favourite competitions, the FA Cup, I love Cinderella stories. I love romance. I love the opportunity for a small team to have that chance to win, and I don't think that should ever be taken away. I think they've got a good balance of it now. And if you look at the four remaining teams that we have in the playoffs this year, yes, they are big programs in terms of Power 4 programs. At least two of them are ones with history, significant history, but none of them have won this thing since 2001. And if you predicted your last four teams at the start of the season, none of these would have been there. Some would have been close, but none would have been there. None of these are the big blue blood powerhouses that you are familiar with college football. There's no Ohio State, Texas, Michigan, Alabama. They're all gone. So there is value in playing it out on the field. I think that, if anything, for British people, I think when they talk about, James Madison shouldn't be in the playoffs or Tulane shouldn't be in the playoffs, I think that goes against what we consider to be sporting integrity, really, because I think it's a convoluted system in America. There's too many teams. The conferences are too big, so you don't get to play everyone anyway. So you're never going to know if you've truly got the best teams in the playoffs anyway. But to kind of already predetermine that half the team shouldn't be there to start off with is kind of grates on my conscience a little bit. So I quite like the system it is now. I think it's a balanced system. And as Sam alluded to with the future of NIL, I think that also helps parity somewhat. Not all the way down the chain, but certainly that mid-chain. So in the past where you might have had 6 to 8 teams, you could probably win it on a frequent basis. Now you've probably got 20. So already we're seeing more competition based on the way that college football has kind of developed in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, but
just on that, guys. Just on you just there, Simon. Sorry, you said it's like so many teams. I'm just throwing it out there. What if you went in like a soccer style and they had teams where there was promotion and relegation? I know they can't get their heads around that in the States, but can you imagine that absolute chaos of actually having playoffs then for promotions, and then eventually like the big bowl is obviously at the the Champions League level, as it were. So then the playoffs, you are the best team in the country at that point. Can you imagine the chaos relegation? Like what would come of that as well? That would be good fun to watch if you talk about Cinderella stories as well. Like you could still then a cup system along the way where everyone still gets to play everyone.
Yeah, and I think Americans will never be able to get their head around it. I don't think. I think it would just blow their minds. But the sheer money involved, And the money that would drop off at the different levels that you have in America would be much more stark than we have in the Premier League to the Championship here. It could be dangerously different. I think the kind of like consequences of being relegated in college football would be heinous to some of these programs with proud traditions, histories, and donors and boosters who throw money at it. I just don't. I think they find it criminal, Sam. I think.
I'm great entertainment from this outside.
You mentioned NIL there, and I think the obvious counter argument to there's increased competitiveness at the top level, but the downside to that is there's increased the bottom feeders are now struggling even more because the NIL is essentially the rich get richer. Like you just mentioned the boosters and the feeders and all that kind of stuff, and now you have an added situation where if you've got a good player on a lower tiered school, he's just going to enter the transfer portal. So like if he's a bit unhappy, they've lost loads of games in a season, but he's kind of a standout player. And you've seen that dozens of times every season, including storylines right now, where he's the standout player on a weaker school, NIL offer from an SEC school. Okay, the money's there, bigger program, bigger opportunities, and the rich are just getting richer. So like they're just throwing money at these players. So like although you did say there's increased competition at the top, I think also the smaller guys are getting left behind equally because not only are they struggling to keep up, but now their best players are also just leaving after 1 year. There's just no loyalty anymore.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, a couple of years ago, we saw Diego Pavia from New Mexico State help New Mexico State, who perennially win 2 out of 12 games a year, get a bowl game, which is incredible for them. And he moves on to Vanderbilt, which is a powerful school, SEC school, but not a big one. Never really playoff relevant or national championship relevant. They have too much of a high academic kind of like standard to attract most players. They're just stolen basically. Mexico State fell back down to irrelevance again. This year we've had North Texas win 12 games this season incredibly. Coach Eric Morris leaves to go to Oklahoma State this offseason and takes 10 of the players already, 3 of which are 3 of the best players in college football this year, Drew Mestermaker and Caleb Harris, the running back. They've cleaned house, and North Texas won't be the same next year, but some team will. And what I think, without kind of free movement of players, I don't particularly enjoy it so much. I think it needs to be kind of some guardrails, be controlled to some extent. But you previously you had schools like Georgia, Ohio State stockpiling talent. You had quarterback after quarterback waiting in the wings to play 1 season before moving on to the NFL. Now, in recent times, you saw some players just starting to move about, and it helped out. Joe Burrow would never have had that chance at Ohio State, had to go to LSU and became one of the best quarterbacks in college football, and we saw something different. And now at the NFL, he's got his opportunity. I would never have had an NFL opportunity had he stayed at Ohio State and been backup all that time. So there's benefits and there are negatives as well. I think it's both ways. As a defender of the group of 5 conferences that really do have those small teams in it, it does hurt me a little bit. But there definitely are some advantages there too to this kind of like free labor movement kind of scenario we've got right now. And it will change again, because right now it's almost like the Wild West out there. There's no rules, there's no money limits, everyone's just going for it at the moment. All the big teams are obviously trying to go for it, but eventually there will be some form of framework put in place whereby kind of like the integrity of the sport is protected and the life and the futures of some of the other schools are protected. Are some of them going to fall away? Potentially. Like all we've ever seen in the FBS is growth. 10 years ago, there was 115 teams in the FBS. Now there's 136. So that means it's not quite getting promoted, but as Sam would suggest, but basically we've got FCS schools or maybe like a lower level in quotation marks schools deciding to make the leap to the FBS and kind of compete in that higher level. That's probably going to stop now, I would imagine. And I don't know how many schools will fall away, if any, but I think eventually they're going to put some rules in place to stop that from being a concern.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you mentioned Cinderella stories earlier. What a season to focus on. Probably, at least in recent memory, the best Cinderella story. From a team level, an individual level, in the Heisman winning quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. What a season by Indiana. Nobody saw this coming, as you said. Nobody expected them to be in the Final Four, but equally, they didn't lose a game all season, and they beat a lot of good teams too. and they just absolutely wiped Alabama out of the college football playoffs. You know, they beat Ohio State in the final game of the regular season as well. This is a real team with a Heisman winning quarterback and an incredible head coach as well. Nobody saw it coming, but an incredible Cinderella story. Like, are they just destined to win this? Is it just written in the stars that this Cinderella story will end with them winning the playoffs?
I think, hopefully so. I think, yes, I think Sam definitely wants it to happen. I think because I think that, again, that kind of like works to our British nature, really. We like to see it. But Indiana were there last year as well. Indiana got to the playoffs last year. There was questions as to whether they should have got there. Everyone thought they had a cupcake schedule. They were bowled out in the first game. I think it was against Notre Dame. But that was Curt Cignetti, the head coach's first year at Indiana, a school that is perennially a basketball program, not a football program, and until last month had the worst winning percentage of any Power 4 program in college football. So out of about 80 teams, they were the worst. And in his 2 years there, he's gotten to the national champion, to the college football players twice, and on the verge of a national championship appearance. It's an unprecedented turnaround in an era where it's supposed to be harder for small teams. He's used that NIL system and that portal system.
Oh,
just got out there. Yeah.
On that, I mean, just in case he has gone, I'd probably stay with India. It has been a good build, but they've always been a QB away. So Mendoza has come in and has been that cherry on the top. I think we've kind of mentioned that previously. I'd like to see it happen just because I think people have been waiting all season for them to stumble. Like, yeah, they've done well, but it's coming. Like, something was coming that was going to stop them and derail them. And they haven't. They have been like full steam ahead, going through everyone at this point. So I think it also needs to happen. Reason being is I'm looking at the draft going into the NFL as well, right? And if Mendoza doesn't do it, I know he's Heisman winner and stuff. I think it puts a bit of a damper on the quality of what is about to come through this year's draft class as well. I think like if they go and win it and Mendoza wins it, Heisman winner, wins the national championship, and then comes into the NFL, I think that is more fit than if he doesn't get over the line at this stage, because I just feel like it's been a bit the quality of player maybe entering draft is a bit underwhelming. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to lads that are coming in, but I think last year we got quite excited about what's coming in. There was already chat about like big hype around Genty and obviously other players entering in as well. But that's my opinion at this point. I just feel maybe it's not that exciting. So really, it could do with like that little bit of hype up if Indiana do go and do it and that complete the Cinderella story as it were. And it really has put them on the map at this point. It'd just be now a case, can they then build on from that in next year as well?
Yep. And I think interestingly, like to actually just contrast what we were literally just speaking about, Mendoza was also a transfer, like a product of the transfer portal. Like, so you mentioned Joe Burrow obviously went to LSU and had one of the best seasons, individual seasons of all time. Mendoza equally was playing in California, comes over to Indiana, and then has statistically not a Burrow style like season, but undefeated in the regular season and a Heisman winning season as well. And I think if they win the championship, it's, as you said, it's just the icing on the cake. But another example there of actually using the transfer kind of policy to your advantage, and then putting your name on the map, winning some major awards, and ultimately improving your draft stock and probably improving your career as well.
I mean, Mendoza was one of many people that Cignetti brought in transport. He took a lot of the guys from James Madison with him too. But in general, he's a developer coach, is Cignetti. He did it every stop he's been at, and he's got a chip on his shoulder that he's taken it this long to be able to have a big opportunity like Indiana to show what he can do. I find it quite amusing that Mendoza is a quirky character. Some will call him a nerd. To being you won't call him a stereotypical Raiders quarterback anyway. It'd be quite funny seeing him in silver and black at the next level. However, we say that he has been incredible, and at every stage he's needed to deliver a Heisman moment, he's delivered it. They've already played Oregon once this season. They beat them 30-20 in Eugene, which is no easy feat. And just as the game went into the fourth quarter, Mendoza threw a pick six, which gave Oregon the lead. He simply marched the team right down the field, took the lead again, and they never relinquished it. And they've had the moments in Indiana this season where they've been put under pressure. They had a struggle against Penn State. They came through it. They had that incredible game against Iowa where they threw that touchdown pass to Omar Cooper at the back of the end zone with his toe kind of tapping at the back of the end zone. They struggled against Oregon, but they've come through it. And then since then, no team's been able to touch them. So it's about time that people kind of realise that Indiana aren't to be slept on. But it's also fair to say that they've got a tough game on tomorrow night, a real tough game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still think Indiana can get over the line with that one though. I do see that. It's the other one actually though that strikes me. I think Miami are favourites, but I feel for us through this whole process for them during this time. You talk about the transfer portal, and we obviously spoke about coaches previously, but that's also going to have an effect. You know, that's why people are moving. The chop and change between coaching staff throughout the season, and obviously even being named like head coach somewhere else before the season is done, is causing absolute havoc. So when you talk Wild Wild West, it's Wild Wild West everywhere on all fronts at the moment. It is a car crash at this stage. So as I said, I'm just hoping, we still get some good football to see the season out, obviously at this point. But I'm looking at these games, like you say, no one's won it since 2001. I did not know that, Simon. So that's good knowledge there for me. And I look at it now with a different set of eyes going, it doesn't matter who wins. It's like a Newcastle element, isn't it? Them picking up a bit of silverware after all that time.
Yeah, I mean, Miami was the team that won in 2001. That was the kind of like the last of the golden era of the Hurricanes, really, when you had your Ed Reeds and your Ray Lewis coming through in the NFL. But I think Ole Miss has won it once in their history, long time ago, and neither Oregon, who's a fairly young program, and Indiana have ever won it. So I think Miami have won it 4 times in that stretch under Jimmy Johnson and that kind of era. So, you are looking at 4 teams that are surprising. And Ole Miss, that whole soap drama they've had to deal with Lane Kiffin leaving for LSU and taking his staff with him and then lending it back to make himself look magnanimous, and then realising that actually Ole Miss are not just going to fall apart against Georgia and bowl out, and now he's getting a bit antsy about it. Ole Miss don't care. They really don't care. Like, Pete Golding's been made head coach, the defensive coordinator. The team's got a real siege mentality about the whole thing. And I do favour Miami just a bit. I think it's a tough one to call, but I think they should just edge it. But Ole Miss are not here to mess around. They're here to play for this thing. They really want to win it. And it's, again, one of those narratives that make college football so unique, because does Lane Kiffin want Ole Miss to win it? If they win it, can he say that was my team and I really won it? Or will he be really gutted that they won it despite him leaving? You know, what's his ego saying over in Baton Rouge? You know, I can't work it out. Will it affect Ole Miss at all? Probably not. Will Miami be able to go into, where they play in the Peach Bowl? Oh no, it's in Arizona tonight, isn't it? And win that game and reestablish what they used to be. You know, they've got a great running back in Mark Fletcher, who's kind of like he's physical Marion Barber style running back. Who's really exciting to watch. They've got weapons all over the place and a really strong defense that's helped. That I think they beat Texas A&M 10-3 in the quarterfinals or in the first round. 10-3 in a playoff game. And we've had one of the other quarterbacks like 90 points, and this one has 13 total. So there's some similarities between these teams, but I think Miami's defense kind of just gives me the kind of confidence that they're going to be able to see out just to stop one drive. It could be a shootout and they stop one drive at some point.
Yeah, I think that whole coaching scandal in Ole Miss, it was scandalous. Like, it's ridiculous for a head coach to guide his team into a playoff, like a highly coveted playoff ranking spot. You know, you look at the teams that missed out on and how sickened, the coaches, and you would be as a roster, as a school, you'd be disgusted just to miss out, even if after you win multiple games. And for Lane Kiffin to get his school program there and then just walk away for a team that's not even ranked, obviously they're a big program, LSU, but like, that lack of loyalty is disgusting. And I'm really glad that Ole Miss are kind of, showing up a finger or two in Louisiana's direction, because it's kind of like, well, look, actually, we didn't need you anyway. But I agree with Sammo. I think that's the more as amazing as the Indiana story is. Like, you look at those two schools, like, it's hard to root against Ole Miss because they, like, their head coach just walked out the door on them, And then Miami, as you said, like, they beat two ranked teams who were ranked higher than them. A&M were ranked higher than them, and then an incredible win against the two ranked Ohio State. So, like, two interesting, very interesting narratives going into that one. But Simon, as you are the guest here, we're going to have to push you for. We want 2 semifinal results, and we're gonna have to push you for a championship winner as well. I mean, we can't let you escape off this episode now without you getting firmly off the fence and pinning your colors in one direction.
All right. Well, I'm no real fan of Carson Beck, the Miami quarterback, but I think if Ole Miss allow Miami to run the ball, then they're in for a tough time. I think at some point Miami will stop Trinidad Chambliss, will stop Ole Miss's high-powered offense, and that'll be a difference. We're looking at one score, maybe 3-point game in Miami's favor. Let's say, I don't know, 35-32 or 38-35, something along those lines. And then tomorrow night, I do think Indiana will see it off. I mean, I do have a soft spot for the Ducks. They've got great uniforms, a passionate fan base. They've got a duck as a mascot who rides a Harley Davidson and likes to give fans like shaves and haircuts on the sidelines and things like that. All the kind of antics you expect. Dante Moore's a fantastic quarterback. They've got NFL talent teaming on that roster that you guys will see in the draft this year. But I'm not betting against Kurt Signetti. The guy is like Bill Belichick, but likable essentially. You can't help but like the guy. He's awesome. I think they're going to win a much lower scoring game potentially, but one that we'll see a couple of drives in the fourth quarter and Mendoza to win it for them at the death. And no, all right, you want a final one as well, don't you? Indiana
yeah, the whole way.
Miami. In that case, Indiana's going to go all the way. They'll win the whole lot. Signetti will complete the story. I don't know what score that'll be, but I'm pretty confident that if I had to put my money on one coach here, one quarterback, it'd be Signetti and Mendoza. So they're my guys to go all the way.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. Sam, you kind of hold on to the same storyline as well.
I think it's the same. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, as we say, anything can happen, as we know in these games. One like lapse of concentration can just turn his head. But I think the way the momentum's gone as well with these teams coming into these games, and while people will say that Ole Miss have got there and they're trying to put their fingers up, obviously to Lane Kiffin, I think that will still have or play a part psychologically. So yeah, I'm with Simon on these predictions. I'm not sure about the scores though. That I'm not going that far. I think the game will definitely be a lot closer than what people think as well. I'd like to see something dramatic happen in one of those games, whether it's a walk-off or crazy like that, or an interception to win it would be pretty awesome, and keep some people entertained throughout this. But yeah, I think Indiana all the way through, and we'll see them as champions.
Yeah. It's hard to bet against them right now. Like, any reservations that people had, I mean, during the regular season, like the common excuses, easy schedule, easy teams, they're playing, all these lower level, smaller programs or whatever. Any reservations anybody may have had about Indiana was just absolutely destroyed by that Alabama game. Like, I mean, and the most impressive thing for me is they never let up. Like, they showed a level of ruthlessness that you see consistently among champions in a lot of different sports. Like, obviously Ty Simpson, fumbled and got injured, in the same play essentially because he didn't slide. Basic level quarterback play right there. But like, Indiana had a lead and they just it was just ruthless. Like, and Alabama, it's just a bit embarrassing at that level. But I think Indiana showed, that kind of scoreline. They won by 35 points. Like, they do not care. Like they're just gonna take, I don't know, take heads. That might be a little bit morbid, but like they are just here to dominate. Like at the end of that game, it was just like, wow, like that was just pure domination. So I think it's after that Alabama game, it's not like, oh, it was a once-off schedule or whatever. Like these guys are legit. But just kind of wrapping up here, Simon, I want to get your thoughts, casting an eye forward. You are a college football expert. You might not call yourself that, but we're going to use it for today's sake. What are your hopes? How do you see, are you optimistic that college football can actually grow in Europe? Obviously, there's a Dublin game, the Union Jack Classic coming to Wembley for the first time. Wembley is a major, major stadium. So you're now talking about a couple of games. I did hear a rumor a while ago that Michigan were supposed to play in Germany. Okay, I think that's fallen through now, but like, can college football expand, into other countries and really get a consistent fan base here? Do you think that can happen?
I think they think it can happen, which gives me confidence immediately, for starters. Obviously, it's worked in Dublin. They have a different model in Dublin than maybe the one that's been promoted in London. Dublin's very much a tourism drive thing, and they do a great job of it, but there's lessons to be learned that will make it successful in London too. Yes, they tried to get a game in Germany. That did fall through. It was Western Michigan going to play Michigan, and I'm not sure that format would be so fun to watch, because there might be a lot of Michigan fans over in Europe, but playing Western Michigan and spanking the Broncos by 50 points isn't much of a spectacle, and that might be a bit more of a trickier sell. But they're definitely looking at expansion, particularly the Big 12 and the ACC, who are two big conferences, but maybe got some work to do to catch up to like the SEC and Big Ten, because the ACC is playing a game in Brazil next year. I think it's NC State playing Pitt, which is quite special too. And as we discussed on this podcast, there are definite correlations between British sport and college football that you don't get with the NFL. So if people are attracted to the NFL for the glitz, the glamour, the big plays, the huge hits, and they've made that work, I think they can make this work too. Will it be a longer sell? Possibly. Are you going to? And is your best entry to getting those fans via the NFL, and what kind of level of interest in American football they've been able to drive over here? Yes, they shouldn't be ashamed of that. They should embrace it. But as me and Sam discussed with the Union Jack Classic guys, we think that, and they agree, you've got to bring the whole spectacle over, because college football is more than just the game. It's the bars either beforehand. It's the tailgating. It's the bands. It's the boosters, the donors. It's all the stuff around it that makes it so much more unique and special compared to an NFL game. That if they bring that here and people experience it, I think they'll want more. I do firmly believe that this game's going to get bigger over here. Of course it is. The NFL has. Why not college football?
Yeah. Do you, like, genuinely speaking now, do you think, because it's something that we discussed a lot. Obviously, Lauren has firsthand experience of the college games over there. Sam's been to a game as well. Like, as you said, that is the true identity. Like, the college games on a Saturday are such a unique experience. Can that be replicated over here? And if so, like, can it be successful?
I don't think it can be replicated. I don't think we have the history and the infrastructure and the kind of the way of thinking, the same way of thinking as Americans do when it comes to collegiate sports, kind of bleeding into professional sports. We don't have that. But what we can do is have multiple games over here that fans will be very much interested to come and see. Like it's the big question in the NFL's lips, isn't it? Can they have a team over here that plays 8 home games a season? They still don't know if they could do that now. So they're going to keep probing, keep working, keep seeing how many games they can get. But yeah, in terms of like, can you fill out Wembley Stadium every year? It's very much an attainable task. Of course it is. You can easily find 80 to 90,000 people who want to experience college football once you've got that and you've got the demand for that, you can probably do it twice. And then it's exactly the same scenario as the NFL. You just slowly build up interest. There's enough to start the ball rolling now. We've worked that out. The things they're putting in place for the Union Jack Classic, they're not daft, these people. They know what they're doing. They're quite smart. They've put on massive events before, including involved with the Jaguars when they first came over to London. They know the task ahead of them. It's a big task, but yeah, can they drum up enough interest to make this a success once a season? Of course they can. Yeah, absolutely. Without doubt in my mind that college football can be something that people want to go to once a year.
Been quite close to Baffa as well. So Yeah, they're working close with BAFTA as well. So you've got obviously the people that maybe have aspirations to go and play and join like the NFL Academy, or try obviously go and join these other colleges in the States themselves. So I think working quite close with them, it's almost like it's grassroots in a sense, right? It's a feed into that as well. So I think they're working with the right people. The country is ready for it. If we were asking this question, obviously when we were just playing one game at Wembley, it would have been way too soon. But I know if you put another NFL game in place in the UK, they're still going to have the same numbers again, right? So I think that the country's ready for it. I've got some diehard fans that come over from Ireland as well, that obviously will make the trip over to the UK. It's just another opportunity for them to still see college games in a sense, who obviously will what you've got with the Aer Lingus game as well. So I think UK and Ireland as a whole, the sport is growing and growing and obviously again things like flag football being put in schools now as well. The sport is there from day one as it were. So I think yeah, it's only going to get bigger off the back of it. I think it was always going to be a hard task when we don't play the sport as widely as it is in the States. But as I said, I think the gateway of flag football as well, where we get boys and girls watching it as well, I think it is only going to get bigger both at the college level and NFL.
Yeah, one last thing, Bernard, before just to mention is that for the Dublin games, they routinely fill half that stadium with American fans who come over for the experience too. So when it comes to Wembley and looking to fill out that 85,000 seat stadium, a third of it could already be filled with the fans of Kansas and fans of Arizona State who want to come over for the experience, which is really unique and cool. And the best thing about that is that when you're out and about in London after the game or before the game, you're interacting with those people. And that's what makes Dublin so special. So that's possibly one of the most things I'm looking forward to the most. Speaking to people who are embedded in that culture, embedded in those programs, fans, families, and then you get that real feeling of what college football is more about than just the game.
Yep, sure. Okay, well, I think we'll wrap it up there. I think that was a great conversation. Simon, thanks for coming on. You've got some good experience and some really good insight on the teams and the college football in general. So thanks for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sam, as always, thanks for being here. We'll wrap it up there. And we'll see you guys next week after some semi-final results. All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.